one of the highlights of going to World Youth Day in Sydney, Australia with Pope Benedict XVI was being able to hear Matt Maher sing. And so when I went to hear the Matt Maher concert, the song that he sang that just spoke to me is, "Your grace is enough." So of course, I had to run and buy a CD. And of course, since I went crazy, I had him sign the cover of my CD where he says, "God bless," which is pretty amazing. I mean, Matt Maher, we sing one of his songs during Mass. One of my favorite communion songs is "Remembrance" by Matt Maher. And so it's really something that one of the top Christian songs for the last few weeks has been by Matt Maher. It's his song, "The Lord's Prayer," or "It's Yours." And the chorus is, "Father, let your kingdom come. Father, let your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, right here in my heart. Father, let your kingdom come. Father, let your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, right here in my heart." And I think what makes this song so popular is not just the music, but the truth of the words. Because I know what speaks to me every time I hear this song is the "right here in my heart." Right here in my heart. I'm looking for an experience of heaven right here, right now. I mean a close, intimate experience of heaven right here in my heart. The Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 2802, puts it this way: "Who art in heaven" does not refer to a place, but to God's presence in the hearts of the just. Heaven, the Father's house, is the true homeland toward which we are heading and to which already we belong. The homeland to which we're heading. All right? We are hoping and praying that through our lives of faith, when we die, we are heading to our eternal homeland in heaven. But notice what the Catechism also says, "and to which already we belong." What is this reference to heaven? So we have the homeland heaven, but the Catechism of the Catholic Church is saying, but we already belong to heaven. I think the best explanation could be found in our gospel today of John chapter 14, verses 2 to 3. Jesus said, "In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If there were not, would I have told you that I'm going to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back again and take you to myself, so that where I am, you also may be." Now, if we take a literal approach of this gospel, what is this referring to? Heaven. Why do you think this is such a popular gospel reading at our funerals? Because it's assuring us this is where we're going to go when we die. God has prepared a place for us in heaven. But what is heaven? Heaven is spending time in God's presence. So you have the heaven that you go to when you die, so that you spend eternity in God's presence. But can't we spend time in God's presence in other ways? You see, what I love is we can take a literal approach to this gospel. But just a couple weeks ago, didn't Father David say that when it comes to the Gospel of John, it really speaks to people who prefer to take a mystical approach to understanding it? A mystical approach? What's a mystical approach? Well, the mystics say that having a mystical experience of God is like God kissing your soul. Isn't that beautiful? Having a mystical experience of God is having God kiss your soul. You see, the literal approach deals with the head and the mind. But the mystical approach deals with the heart. I've got a good analogy. If a child falls and skins their knee, The literal approach is you clean it with Bactine, right? Does what it's supposed to do. Does it solve the problem with the child, though? No. What does it frequently take? The mother then kissing the knee. Now, that's the mystical. I mean, kissing the knee, look at all that germs and bacteria that's probably, it's not the literal approach to making the knee better. But it helps, doesn't it? It helps. And so we're invited to grow in a more intimate relationship and experience of the presence of Jesus through a more mystical approach, to go from the head to the heart. And we're told how to do this in the first letter of St. Peter, chapter 2, verse 5. Like living stones, let yourselves be built into a spiritual house. To put the pieces of our life together in such a way that God will dwell with us, that God will dwell within us, to create a presence of God where? In our hearts. And what's the best way to put the pieces of our life together? What's the best way to create this spiritual house? Well, the Catechism quotes from St. Augustine in paragraph 2794, "Our Father who art in heaven" is rightly understood to mean that God is in the hearts of the just, as in his holy temple. At the same time, it means that those who pray should desire the one they invoke to dwell in them. There it is, right there. Those who pray invoke the presence of the Lord to dwell in them. You can't have a more intimate relationship with someone than to have their presence within your heart. That's why in our first reading from the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 6, verse 4, they said very clearly, "We shall devote ourselves to prayer." And what elicited that response? There was all this stuff going on in their lives that were keeping them from praying. There was all this interruptions and all this conflict and they couldn't pray. Now, that would never happen in our lives at all, right? We have nothing in our lives that might distract us or keeping from praying, right? What the apostles do. They said, well, we're going to do something about it. And that's what we're called to do. To do something about that, no matter how crazy and busy and insane and disruptive our lives might be. We've got to take the time in putting together the pieces of our life in such a way that we create a spiritual house where the Lord will dwell, so that we can have that most intimate experience with the Lord possible. An experience of the Lord in our hearts, that mystical experience that gives us an experience of heaven, not somewhere in the future after we die, but right here, right now in our lives. And boy, don't we need that right now? Don't we need that right now? Like a child needs a mother to kiss a skinned knee. Don't we need God to kiss our soul right here, right now? Let us open ourselves up to putting things together in our lives to create that spiritual house, to create that presence of the Lord right here, right now, in our hearts.